Good evening, you are watching the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. First, the headlines. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq sends a cable of greetings to His Highness Sheikh Nawaf al-Ahmad al-Jaber al-Sabah on the occasion of his swearing in the constitutional oath and assuming the reins of power in the state of Kuwait. His Highness Sheikh Nawaf al-Ahmad al-Jaber al-Sabah takes the oath as the Emir of Kuwait in a special session before the National Assembly. And the state of Kuwait holds a funeral ceremony for late His Highness Sheikh Sabah al-Ahmad al-Sabah. May Allah rest his soul in peace. Those were the headlines. Now for the news in detail. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq sends a cable of greetings to His Highness Sheikh Nawaf al-Ahmad al-Jaber al-Sabah on the occasion of his swearing in the constitutional oath and assuming the reins of power in the sisterly state of Kuwait. His Majesty the Sultan sent a cable of condolences to His Highness Sheikh Nawaf al-Ahmad al-Jaber al-Sabah, Emir of Kuwait, on the death of the late Emir of Kuwait, His Highness Sheikh Sabah al-Ahmad al-Jaber al-Sabah. His Majesty expressed his heartfelt condolences and sympathy to the ruling family of al-Sabah, the government and the people of Kuwait, praying to Allah the Almighty to rest his soul in peace and grant the family of the deceased patience and solace. The Diwan of the Royal Court issued a statement reading as follows: with full faith in the Almighty Allah's will and judgment, and with profound sorrow and grief, His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq has received the news of the death of his brother, His Highness Sheikh Sabah al-Ahmad al-Jaber al-Sabah, the late Emir of the state of Kuwait. The deceased was one of the Arab leaders who contributed with great wisdom and farsightedness to establishing a system of justice to humanity. By his demise, the Sultanate loses a dear beloved brother. His Majesty the Sultan has issued his royal orders to announce a state of mourning in the Sultanate for 3 days, beginning today, Wednesday, the 30th of September 2020. Flags to be flown at half-mast and official duty will resume on Sunday, the 16th of Safar 1442 after Hijrah, coinciding with the 4th of October 2020. While sharing the Kuwaiti leadership, governments and people their sorrows and grief over this immense loss, the Sultanate prays to Almighty Allah to rest the deceased in peace in heavens, along with the devout and the faithful, and to grant his noble family and the brotherly people of Kuwait fortitude to bear this loss. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq sent a cable of greetings to His Excellency President Xi Jinping of China on the 71st anniversary of the establishment of the People's Republic. His Majesty the Sultan sent a cable of greetings to His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari of Nigeria on his country's National Day. And His Majesty sent a cable of greetings to His Excellency President Nikos Anastasiadis of Cyprus on the country's independence anniversary. His Highness Sheikh Nawaf al-Ahmad al-Jaber al-Sabah took the oath before the National Assembly today to become the new Emir of the state of Kuwait. After that, His Highness delivered a speech before the National Assembly highlighting the achievements of the late Emir in all fields of development in the state of Kuwait. He further called on all people to stand as one and face the challenges, as well as to contribute in the development of the beloved country. He concluded by praying to Allah the Almighty to protect the country and grant him and the people of Kuwait success. His Highness Sheikh Nawaf Al-Ahmad Al-Jaber Al-Sabah, the Emir of the State of Kuwait, is considered one of the most important figures in contributing to the making of modern Kuwait. His Highness took a number of governmental posts in the previous decades. More details in the following report.
His Highness Sheikh Nawaf Al-Ahmad Al-Jaber Al-Sabah, the Emir of Kuwait.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Of the saddening news on the death of the late Emir of Kuwait, His Highness Sheikh Sabah Al-Ahmad Al-Jaber Al-Sabah. In accordance with the Kuwaiti Constitution, an exceptional meeting was held where the Council of Ministers announced that His Highness Sheikh Nawaf Al-Ahmad Al-Jaber Al-Sabah would succeed him as the Emir. His Highness Sheikh Nawaf Al-Ahmad Al-Jaber Al-Mubarak Al-Sabah, born in Kuwait on the 25th of June 1937. He is the sixth son to the 10th Emir of Kuwait, Sheikh Al-Ahmad Al-Jaber Al-Sabah, and the stepbrother of the late Emir. He began his education in the schools in Kuwait, and then in 1961 he was appointed as the governor of Hawali, where he spent 18 years in his post. Then he took on the responsibility of the Ministry of the Interior as minister for 10 years, and in 1988 he was appointed as Minister of Defence, and then the Minister of Labour and Social Affairs. In every post he took, His Highness Sheikh Nawaf Al-Ahmad devoted everything to it, evidence of his loyalty to Kuwait and to the Arab and Islamic nations. The world witnessed many great achievements that were recorded under his name and received many accolades in appreciation to the great efforts spent throughout in service. On the 7th of February 2006, the late Emir announced that Sheikh Nawaf Al-Ahmad was to be his successor, and ever since, his achievements and accolades were never-ending. He was a great aid for the late Emir, on his right side, always a shoulder to lean on, both leading Kuwait and its people forward to a brighter future. On the 29th of September, upon hearing the devastating news, the Kuwaiti Council of Ministers calls for Sheikh Nawaf Al-Ahmad to be the new Emir of the state. And on the 30th of September, he was sworn in. Kuwait leaders and citizens continue its march towards a brighter future.
The state of Kuwait held a funeral ceremony for the late His Highness Sheikh Sabah Al-Ahmad Al-Sabah, may Allah rest his soul in peace. His Highness Sheikh Nawaf Al-Ahmad Al-Sabah, Emir of Kuwait, was in the front upon the arrival of the body of the late Emir of Kuwait in the airport from the United States. The funeral convoy then left for Bilal bin Rabah Mosque, where the funeral prayer was performed. The burial was done in As-Salaybekhat Cemetery with the presence of the family members of the late Emir. Numerous development achievements had taken place in Kuwait during the era of late His Highness Sheikh Sabah Al-Ahmad Al-Sabah. His Highness was known for his great efforts in enhancing peace, supporting humanitarian works, and enhancing relations with all countries all over the world. He established a comprehensive development characterized by social stability, economic growth, and urban prosperity. On the social front, late His Highness had adopted a wise approach based on expanding participation of the citizens in decision-making regarding development aspects and granting the Kuwaiti women political rights that enabled them to occupy many high-ranking positions. He also had accorded great attention to the fields of health and education. On the economic front, His Highness Sheikh Sabah adopted a plan to make Kuwait an international financial and commercial hub, to develop the industrial sector and launch many big investment projects. The Omani-Kuwaiti relations had witnessed great development during the era of late His Highness Sheikh Sabah Al-Ahmad Al-Jaber Al-Sabah. This distinguished relations had resulted in cooperation in various economic and political fields. Late His Highness Sheikh Sabah had accorded great attention to further enhancing these relations in all the fields that resulted in strengthening brotherly relations between the people of both countries. This wise vision of both late His Majesty Sultan Qaboos and His Highness Sheikh Sabah, may Allah rest their souls in peace, was followed by His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq. The Omani-Kuwaiti Joint Committee had contributed in enhancing this cooperation that resulted in trade exchange and investment projects in various fields, topped by big projects in the Duqm Special Economic Zone, such as the Duqm Refinery and Petrochemical Complex. A benevolent ally of Oman, the Emir of Kuwait, will be remembered for his peace efforts in the region. More details in the following report.
The Sultanate has lost a partner in peacemaking, and the world lost a master mediator in Kuwait's Emir Sheikh Sabah Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber. Both countries believe in de-escalation, dialogue, trust building and diplomacy help them to persuade rivals to sit around a table for peaceful resolution of conflicts in the region. Indeed, Oman and the world will miss him. He worked for the unity of Gulf countries through his shuttle diplomacy and dialogue. He strived to protect the Gulf House. He believed that the GCC is a promising glimmer of hope in the darkness of Arab action and a model to be followed in cooperation, and that there is a greater need to approach the crisis in a calm manner and to avoid the conflict in an attempt to overcome the situation. And again, he saw that what brings together is stronger than what divides the nation.
The Arab world will miss a person with a great integrity, a leader who believed in Arab unity and peace in the world. He was so close to Oman, and we will miss him. May Allah place him in Jannah. Our condolences to our relative, the people of Kuwait.
The Emir was a respected mediator, seen as the leader with the best chances of negotiating a settlement in many conflicts, given his long-time service. Sheikh Sabah Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Sabah, the Emir of Kuwait, was a great statesman and a visionary leader who worked hard for boosting cooperation among the Gulf Cooperation Council country states and led the growth march in the region. His death has left a big void that will be hard to fill. Abdullah bin Ahmed Al-Rubi'i, Sultanate of Oman Television, Muscat.
We lost it's very sad news to hear about the death of Emir Sabah Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber. In Oman, we have really lost a great friend and a brother of Oman. And the world had lost a leader, peacemaker, and a man with a humanity and a good policy in the world. As the relation between Oman and Kuwait is a very old relation. With the discovery of oil in the Gulf, Kuwait gave opportunity to Oman to work and study. Myself, I study since the elementary and secondary, and Kuwait gives many scholarships to the Omani to study since the 1940 and the 50s. So all the Kuwait, if you see, is give a great assistance to the Omani people to work and to study. As part also, I had wonderful memory with the new Emir of Kuwait, Sheikh Nawaf Al-Ahmed Al-Sabah. We wish him all the best, all the prosperity for the Kuwaiti people, and wishing him to succeed to carry the former Sheikh Sabah Al-Ahmed mission.
His Excellency Said Badr bin Hamad Al Busaidi, Foreign Minister, said during the 75th session of the United Nations UN General Assembly that His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq has reaffirmed that the Sultanate of Oman will follow the wise policy developed by late His Majesty Sultan Qaboos bin Said, the builder of the modern Oman and the mastermind of its foreign policy and international relations over the past 50 years. His Excellency said that the United Nations celebrates the 75th anniversary of its establishment. They would like to seize this opportunity to express deep thanks and appreciation for the United Nations and His Excellency the Secretary General Antonio Guterres and his staff for their continued and tireless efforts to maintain international peace and security, as well as assuring the United Nations of the Sultanate's readiness to continue the cooperation with all member states to achieve the noble purpose of the United Nations. Regarding the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic, His Excellency the Minister said that the international community has a duty to ensure that all the resources to fight this pandemic, in particular the vaccines, are fairly distributed, especially in the least developed countries where medical facilities are limited. Meanwhile, the minister said the Sultanate follows the path of dialogue and encourages it as it supports of the values of tolerance, collective actions, and peaceful coexistence with all, and believe in the principles of justice, equality, good neighborhood, the rule of the law, and non-interference in the internal affairs of others. He said that this comes from the standpoint the Sultanate supports the legitimate and just demands of the Palestinian people and the establishment of an independent state of Palestine with East Jerusalem as its capital, on the basis of the international law and the relevant UN Security Council resolutions, as well as the Arab Peace Initiative, which is based on the principle of the land for peace and the two-state solution. His Excellency also called upon all parties in the Republic of Yemen to rally around the table for a constructive dialogue in order to reach a peaceful and consensual solution to the ongoing conflict. In this regard, he called upon all parties to support the efforts of the UN Special Envoy to Yemen. He also called upon the international community, especially donor countries and organizations, to intensify efforts to provide and deliver humanitarian supplies due to the critical situation and the tragic suffering of the people in the country. He expressed the Sultanate's support for Lebanon and called upon the international community to support Lebanon in its reconstruction efforts and help it grapple with the impact of the recent tragic explosion in the port of Beirut. Regarding Libya, the minister said that the Sultanate of Oman welcomed the ceasefire agreement and the work to establish the mechanisms and arrangements for the resumption of the oil production and export operations and for the management of the revenue arising for the benefit of the people of Libya. Meanwhile, he said that this year the Sultanate has taken important steps to restructure and modernize its administrative apparatus in support of its current phase of economic development within Oman Vision 2020-2040. This is the Sultanate of Oman television. Before we end tonight's news bulletin, here are the main points once again. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq sends a cable of greetings to His Highness Sheikh Nawaf Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Sabah on the occasion of his swearing in the constitutional oath and assuming the reins of power in the state of Kuwait. His Highness Sheikh Nawaf Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Sabah takes the oath as the Emir of Kuwait in a special session before the National Assembly. And the state of Kuwait holds a funeral ceremony for late His Highness Sheikh Sabah Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Sabah. May Allah rest his soul in peace. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news bulletin. From all of us here at the newsroom and the studios, thank you for watching and good night.